so much for joining us today. My name is Vicki Townsend. I'm the founder and president of Divorce Right, and we provide managerial training for HR professionals and company supervisors so that you can recognize divorce in your employees and then get them the immediate support that we can provide in divorce coaching and case management. We provide the care and guidance that your divorcing employees so desperately need. Divorce is a huge disruptor, not only to the employee going through it, but to the company they work for. And our mediators and coaches have a unique 360-degree perspective of the entire divorce puzzle. They have a deep understanding of the legal, financial, and emotional aspects of divorce, and they can handle even the highest conflict cases with compassion and professionalism. Our mediators and coaches are trained to look at the entire picture, helping your employees make good decisions based on their goals and their expectations. And we give them hope for a better future. So even if you have a current legal plan in place for your employees, that's not enough to support them through divorce and may be making things worse. So reach out to us today to see if adding our benefits through your benefits manager or total rewards manager is a good fit for your business. And today we're going to be talking about my favorite. It's the mediation process and why it's a good option for your employees. Even if you have a discounted legal plan in your EAP, it's simply not enough for your employees going through it. And as a matter of fact, it could be doing more damage than good, because what it does is it just throws them right into litigation. So today we're going to be talking with my special guest, Annalisa Gertner. Annalisa is the director and trainer at the Center for Mediation and Training and a family mediator and divorce coach at Manhattan Mediators. As a mediator, she helps families going through conflicts and disagreements to arrive at solutions without having to go to court. She has experience mediating a wide range of family conflicts. In addition to helping couples separate and divorce, Annalisa also works with couples in marital mediation, using mediation techniques to improve the relationship and help people stay together. Annalisa also has extensive experience working with families on mediating parent-adolescent conflicts. And in addition to her work as a family mediator, Annalisa also is trained as a coach at NYU, and she uniquely combines her skills as both a coach and a mediator. Annalisa has been actively involved in center programs since 2015, and she's a member of the APFM, NYS, CDM, and FDMC. Welcome, Annalisa. Thanks so much for joining us today on this really important topic.
Thank you, Vicki, for having me. I'm honored to be here and to talk about the great work that Divorce Right is doing and all the ways that we can help companies and their employees make this really difficult time a little bit easier.
It is. And you're in the middle of Manhattan, and not known as the place of, peace and quiet, but a city of kind of aggression and going to battle, right? So, and we're here to talk about, how we can help your employees get divorced in a kinder, gentler, less expensive, and faster way. And that's what I love about the mediation process. And it's, with the saddest part about this is that the brand of divorce is you better lawyer up. That's what everybody thinks, right? That's exactly what people go to first. Like, who's your lawyer? You're going to get a shark? You're going to get a bulldog? And that just sets the tone, don't you think?
Well, I find that most people's knowledge of divorce is either what they've seen in the movies or from their the only friends that seem to talk about it are the ones that had the worst divorces. No one comes and says, my divorce went really well. I went to a mediator. It was great. It's kind of like, so everyone's knowledge is coming from a place of drama.
Yeah, that's true. Never thought about that. So,
they're going to get their day in court with the big hat and everything in your honor. And that's not really how it happens. There are ways to make it more peaceful, and lawyering up is not necessarily the best first step to take.
Well, so what are the different ways to get divorced?
So there's several ways to get divorced. I'll start with the furthest out and work my way back in. There's some religions where you actually go to, if you got religiously married, you go and you get a religious divorce, and the tribunal or whatever the different religions have set up the divorce, and then they file that with your state. So that's one way people get divorced. Another way you can get divorced is a collaborative divorce. A collaborative divorce is where each party has a lawyer, and they may have professional people, they may have children, psychologists, but everyone sits in the room together. And there are some benefits to that, but we'll talk about the benefits later. But, that's where it is. You hire a lawyer, your lawyer, and you sit in the room with each of your lawyers and each other, and you try and hammer things out. Then, of course, there's a litigated divorce. So the litigated divorce doesn't actually happen like you see it in the movies where you go to court. Only about 6% of divorces actually end up in front of the judge because the judge wants people to settle. So then what happens is your attorneys go back and forth between the two of them and they try and hammer out a deal for the two spouses. And then of course there's mediation. Mediation actually involves participation from both parties in a very big way. They don't have attorneys acting for them at the mediation process. They sit in the room and they come up with agreements together on what will work best for them and their family.
I love it. That's my favorite way. And the reason that I like that so much is exactly what you just said. They sit in a room, and sometimes they're in the same room and sometimes not. Right?
Right.
Like, you can have it as a mediator, you could go back and forth.
Right.
They make their decisions. You don't make their decisions for them. A judge doesn't make their decisions for them. It's the best way that I find that you can get to a resolution quickly, less expensive. You're not paying, $500 an hour for your attorney. I'm not paying $500 for my attorney, $1,000 an hour to hammer out something that we know, pretty much what we want. The other thing that I love about mediation is that, oh, sorry, my dog is going to join us today. What I love about mediation is that, you decide what happens in your family. And, and also, maybe there are a couple of things that you can't come to an agreement on, but you probably can come to an agreement on who gets the car, who gets the boat, who gets grandma's china, right? Those things can be mediated in a less expensive, less toxic, and less acrimonious way.
Yes. And even the things that you can't decide, and you get to learn each other's perspectives. And you think, why do I need to learn his perspective? I'm getting rid of him. Or why do I need to care what she thinks? But at the end of the day, to reach good agreements, if you each understand what's behind each of your requests, you sometimes end up with a better agreement that way.
Yeah. Just listening to each other.
Yeah,
So,
and you learn what's important to yourself also, because sometimes you don't take the time to think what's important to me. And when you start having to hammer it out yourself, you think, hey, you know what, this isn't so important. This is rather important. And you learn about yourself in the process, and you learn what your priorities are, and you understand what the other person's priorities are. And if there are children involved, you're going to be in each other's lives forever at the end of the
right,
day. If
right,
there are no children involved, it's a different story. But if there are children involved, you're going to be in each other's. So learning how to actually come to agreements together is really important for the future of your family. You're still a family. You're divorced, but you're still, co-parents. You still have children, and you want to try and, this is a point where you can either go really sour, or you could say, hey, we're getting divorced, but we're going to have to make decisions together. We're going to be in our children's lives. Let's see if we could do this in the most peaceful way possible.
right, exactly. And to your point, I mean, I'm divorced and I am now a grandparent with my ex. We still have to deal with, we had baby showers and weddings and all of those things. And to be able to sit at a table with somebody without having all of that vitriol and, the anger and the toxicity that a litigated divorce can cause, I think is such a great benefit to the
Right.
family, to the children, to the grandchildren.
Right. No parent wants to see their kid make the winning touchdown and then look around and see, are my parents fighting with each other? Where they sit, or going down the wedding aisle or going down their graduation aisle. We want the best for our kids. And even if it means we have to suck it up and be nice to each other, you got to do it for your kids.
Yeah, exactly. So what are there any other benefits to mediation that you can think of?
Well, sure, there are many. First of all, mediation is faster. Because if you're going to court, even if you're going to court dates, I mean, especially in New York, are 6 months out, and then every motion takes a while. And even if your lawyers are kind of coming to an agreement, it's still a lot of back and forth. It's first of all, it's broken telephone because
It is.
he says that, and so there's that problem. And then it takes a long time, and every time they type a letter, every time they type one letter onto their computer into their email, it costs you money.
Hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And the system is actually, it's counterintuitive because the harder the divorce is and the longer it takes and the more it's drawn out, the more the lawyers make.
Right.
So it's a counterintuitive process in terms of getting things done quickly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is the one industry I can think of where, first of all, they know every dime that you have because you have to do that financial affidavit, right? They know
Mhm.
everything that you have. And it's the only industry I can think of where there's not only no incentive to get it completed, but there's actually a financial incentive to keep it going.
Right.
And that's, I mean, if nobody else hears anything but that, just understand that, to your point, it's backwards. It is, the and there's a number of reasons. And to your point, just simply having a phone call. One of the things that has always been, my I don't know what the it gets on my cross. I hate Mondays because I know what happens in a family law attorney's office on Monday mornings, right? That SOB didn't bring back the kids. He was supposed to be back and at 5 o'clock because we were going to I was going to take the kids to my mother's. And he sachets in at 10 after 7, never says anything, drops the kids off. And so that's a $500 phone call, right? Because
Right.
he's got that your lawyer now has to send a letter to opposing counsel. Opposing counsel has to open that email, right? And call his or her client and say, hey, you were supposed to bring back the kids at 5 o'clock for her to have dinner. That's another $500. And then it just continues to go volley
Right.
back and
And
forth.
they answer you back for $500. So
Right.
that's a
Right.
$1,500 problem right there.
Exactly. And people also feel paralyzed when they've hired an attorney, that once I've hired an attorney, I can't talk to you anymore.
Right.
Right. I can't, I just can't talk. Well, you know what? In a mediated divorce, communication is revered. Communication with each other is the central hub of the success of this.
Right. I mean, it's actually an investment for your future
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it's creating the framework for the next stage of your relationship.
So who's mediation? When is mediation not an option?
So mediation is not an option first of all, when someone's lying in terms
Right.
of hiding financials. If someone's hiding financials and you want to get a fair settlement, sometimes you need the power of the court to come in and say, hey, hand it over. Let's see what you got. Also in cases where people are recalcitrant, in terms of like they don't want, sometimes there's one person that just doesn't want to get divorced. They don't want to move out of the house, or they like the status quo. They're not paying that much child support. If they actually do it officially, or either through mediation or through the court, they'd be paying much more. So they'll like let they'll let the clock tick as long as they can. So some cases like that, sometimes you need to call in a higher power and get people to step in line.
Is it possible, if you start by filing and you get that person that doesn't want to go through it, can you hire an attorney to get the process started and then move to mediation?
Sure, I have a lot of clients that have done that. They do that in order to sort of get the other person's attention. Like, okay, this is real. We're really doing this. And then they'll come to mediation.
Okay. And so what do they have to do? They have to end their relationship with that attorney?
They put the case on hold usually, and then once they've come to agreements in mediation, they throw the case out.
Okay, gotcha.
But
Gotcha.
just to be clear, in the mediation process, we use attorneys. Once we've come to agreements, each party takes it away to their own attorney. And usually the attorney only needs to spend 2 or 3 hours. That's the only attorney time you need, going over the agreement and making sure
Right.
that they're satisfied.
Right. Absolutely. And when we do mediations, that's an absolute must. And that's where, in an EAP plan, there's oftentimes either legal insurance or a legal program where you get a discount on legal services. And, those services are great for this, but they're not great for a divorce in general, only because they're asked two questions. What do you need an attorney for? A divorce. What county are you in? They don't ask any other
Right.
questions. They don't consider any of the other processes that you've talked about. So it automatically throws them into the most toxic, most acrimonious process for divorce that's available.
And the most expensive,
And the most
and the most time consuming, because as employees, anyone that's going they say divorce is one of the most difficult things, besides, I think, the death of a spouse,
A spouse, yeah.
divorce, and then moving are like the three most stressful times. So, if someone's an employee and they're going through this in the most expensive, time consuming way, it's not going to make them a good employee.
Right,
It's not
absolutely.
good for the company. It's not good for them personally. It's not good for their family life. There's no upside to stretching this out, making it more expensive and making it more difficult. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the things we talk about is that, you know, divorce causes about a 40% productivity loss. Well, how
mhm,
does that productivity loss happen? Well, it happens because there's absences. They have to go meet with their attorneys. They have to have court appearances. The judge wants an update. It's distractions because they have to continually answer emails. They have to
mhm,
send in paperwork. They have to provide evidence, all of this stuff. And then and presenteeism, that's that when you're kind of at work but you're really not at where you're physically there but you're just
right,
mentally checked out, and which is the most expensive of all of it, because if you're not there, that's easy to see. But if you're not engaged or you're just totally distracted, because quite frankly, your employees are worried about everything. They have no plan, they have no guidance, no direction. They don't know what's coming at them, and they
mhm,
don't know how to handle it all. They don't have the support and guidance that they need through this incredibly labyrinthine process. And
right,
that's why, I love what we're talking about today, because this provides, and what we do is we provide that in combination with divorce or life coaching that really helps them bring that temperature down so that they can make some informed decisions about what's
mhm,
coming up. They can create a plan. And when you don't know what's coming at you, you're constantly worried. But if you know
right,
what's happening and you can see that the light at the end of the tunnel, that takes away all of those other distractions. And also, by the way, one of the things that happens with a divorcing employee is that they quit. That's a very expensive problem
right,
for an employer. So, employers, keep your employee employed by providing them the guidance and directions with something like us here at Divorce Right, so that we can
right,
help them. Because the number one reason that they quit is that they felt unsupported and uncared for at work. Leave your divorce at home. Well, it's so easy when divorce is a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 industry. Right? It
right,
is. It's hard
right.
to, you
Well,
can't leave that at home.
no, and what, by going through mediation, you're basically cutting the process. You're making the process easier because you're cutting down the time, so they'll be done with this divorce faster. If they're in litigation, it's going to take them longer, so they can
Yep.
get back to being themselves sooner. They're less stressed because the cost isn't as much. And they also, what you mentioned before, is like not knowing what's going to happen. In
Right.
mediation, you have a certain amount of control, which you
Yes.
don't have in the other ways. Mediation lets you be in the driving seat. You have control of your situation, and that's something that helps employees a great deal, because they're, like you said, if you don't know what's going on, you're stressed and you're in a constant flight or flight, and it's hard to engage in what you're doing. But if you're in mediation, you have a certain amount of control of the situation.
Right.
And if you think,
Yeah, you have to follow the guidelines, right? You're going to follow the guidelines. There's no negotiating with child support. Those are calculations that are there for you. And at the end of the day, you can make decisions because it's what's best for your family, instead of some judge saying you got to sell the house, or you got to,
right,
whatever that is. You get to make those decisions.
right.
So,
And in
yeah,
mediation, you can be creative. We come up with all sorts of things. We trade off the pension for the house. There's ways to be creative, and judges are not going to be creative for you.
no,
You're a piece of
it
paper
it
that they
requires
stamp.
too much. Yeah, they've got 10 cases that day. They're
Right,
gonna do whatever is the best to get you out of the system, not into the best solution,
right,
right? So,
right.
yeah, I agree. So, are there anything that you would like for an employer to know, that we haven't touched on with this? Because I wholeheartedly believe that this is the best answer when there's honesty between the two parties. And also, if I think we talked about how mediation is not right for those that are hiding assets. It's also, I don't think, right for parties where there's been domestic violence.
Right. I personally don't take cases with domestic violence. I have colleagues that do because they feel that everyone deserves mediation if they're both parties are willing to come to an agreement. So they feel if, some people feel if both parties feel safe, um, and they're willing to come to agreements, because you have to have two parties that want to come to some form of an agreement. Some people don't want to agree. Like I said, they want to kick the can down the road for as long as possible because they're happy with where they are.
Right.
So like I said, so you need to have two people that are willing. So some people will take clients with domestic violence if if they meet certain criteria.
Yeah. Yeah. I find there the power dynamic there is pretty off. But if you guys can do it, I'm my
Right.
hat is off to you.
Right.
But
The other thing is like getting divorced is almost like you're being punched in the stomach and then you're told, okay, climb up on a tightrope because you got to make all these decisions. You're going through one of the most traumatic parts, times in your life, but you also have to decide things that are going to affect you for at least the next, if you have kids, for at least the next 15 to 20 years,
right.
or even further with retirement assets. So you want to make smart decisions. And it's hard to do that. If you have a lawyer who's very litigious, they might not always have that, they might not have the same goals as you. So you want to work with someone that has the same goals with you. And you want to also like just take step. Wait, I'm not making this decision from a place of emotion. I want to make this decision from a place of thought and rationale. Like say I want the boat because I don't want him to have it, but I don't actually want the boat. It's going to cost me thousands of dollars to keep the boat. Who wants? I
Right.
never go sailing. I don't want the boat, but I just don't want him to have the boat. So in mediation, you kind of take the time to say, okay, this is my position, but this is my interest behind my position. And like I said, you get to know yourself better, you get to know the other person better, and you come to agreements that actually try and satisfy everyone's needs as much as possible.
That's why I love this. I love what you do. Do me a favor and tell everybody how they can reach out to you in Manhattan.
Okay. Well, I work all over the country just to, I
Uncontested. That's another thing that I love about mediation is that good mediators can work on uncontested divorces anywhere.
Yeah, so I work anywhere. I also do divorce coaching. You can reach me. My company's called ManhattanMediators.com. I'm also you can find me on LinkedIn. And my phone number is 212-595-1364.
Thank you so much. This has been, this is my favorite conversation when we can enlighten and educate people that there is a better way to go through this process. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. So thank you so much for being with us today. And we will see you next week. Next week, we have a chaplain from South Florida that's going to be joining us talking about, he works with first responders. So we're working really hard to help first responders who struggle through divorce get through it in a kinder and gentler way with mediation. So thank you. So we'll be talking about that. And we'll see you all next Thursday. Bye for now.